Hey friend, welcome to Healthy with Heather Brown. If you don't know where to start with balancing being healthy and loving the life you already have, I got you, friend. And yes, of course, we're still going to enjoy some Chick-fil-A. I'm here to come alongside you and encourage you to fall more in love with your creator, your spouse, your kids, and your own health journey. We'll talk about how to let your good things grow until they become daily habits, with the occasional dad joke and point of view from my Yankee hubby, Eric. Don't stress. Let's hop on this hot mess express together. So join me, Heather Brown, as we unpack what it looks like to live a life well loved. Hey girl gang, welcome back to my conversation with Ashley Stock, where she is sharing her journey through grief and what it looks like to walk through hard things as a family and with a social media following. The whole time that I listened to the first half of her episode last week, I just kept thinking about the mind, body, and spirit connection and how powerful it is. If you have questions about that, or if you missed it, haven't listened to part one yet, make sure that you pause right here and go listen to it from last week. And if you're all caught up, just grab your coffee. Let's dive right in as she shares about PTSD and how to tell when you need help.
It's so funny. So to ask somebody in the midst of depression or grief, at least for me, my own experience, number one, I don't love to ask for help. I'm grateful for help. And I'm surrounded by a community that I feel like when somebody says, I don't like to ask for help, it's almost disrespecting all of the amazing people they have around them that are helping them every day. And I have a community that lifts me up and carries me and supports me all the time. And I'm so lucky to have such amazing friends and family who do support me, but they know me well enough. They've learned how to help me without me asking, because when you're in the midst of all of those tough emotions, you don't even know how to help yourself. And what I have found has helped me the most is people, we just save space and we don't judge the way that somebody is navigating their current emotional health. And we give them grace. I can give you an example is that, after CD to this day, there are a lot of social functions that are a typical part of life, like a friend's birthday dinner or a girl's trip or a play date with kids or a PTA fundraiser at the school. All of these things that were a part of my everyday life that sometimes sound completely overwhelming and triggering. And things that you never could have expected to be a part of grief, like school drop-off is hard for me. That's one of those things that's really hard. Number one, she used to be a big part of that. Number two, I can feel everyone's eyes on me. Going to Target is a trigger. I run into everybody that I've ever known. I have to pass the aisle where I would every single time, no matter what self-control I was trying to exercise, buy her a million outfits. And she was always in the she was my target partner. These are little silly everyday life things that are triggering that you don't realize about somebody who's going through a depression or PTSD or massive anxiety or, have you ever heard the saying that you're only as happy as your least happy family member? And so maybe you're not going through a depression, but maybe your child is, and you're not sleeping because of that. You're going to experience a lot of these triggers and a lot of these overwhelming emotions. And on top of it, when the people that you love or the people in your community, if you feel any sense of judgment from them, it can be debilitating and isolating and lonely and send you into a spiral even deeper into those emotional health issues. So when I would cancel on a birthday lunch with one of my dearest friends moments before, it could have been very easy for me to feel judgment or feel their hurt or for them to have made it about them. And it would have been fair, but they didn't. And instead it was like, we understand. Even if they didn't understand, they knew I can't understand, but I'm going to give grace and I'm not going to take this personal and I'm going to let my friend show up or not show up exactly how they need to. And that was the biggest favor people did for me, was I didn't have to walk around with guilt that maybe I wasn't as great of a friend as I used to be. I had a lot of shame after her that I wasn't who I used to be to people anymore because I didn't have the capacity. And when someone we know and love is going through any sort of mental health journey, they aren't going to be able to show up in their life or for you in the same capacity that they had before. And they're going to beat themselves up over that. So if they start to feel you giving them grace, that they're not showing up to the same extent that they used to before, that is going to give them permission to be themselves and show up as themselves that day and not have to fake it. And the whole fake it till you make it is crap. It is crap. Show up, try your best, get dressed, but don't fake it, and give the people you love permission to not fake it. That's how they fake it.
So true. It's funny you say that because I've mentioned several times on the podcast that I have been doing this. It's basically a grief workbook, and you work through the 12 steps of grief. And one of the things that me and my girlfriend were going through it, we were like, I just struggle to cry. And like, where do you even find the space as a busy mom to just be able to cry and like let all those emotions roll out? So I do want to say, since Ashley just mentioned that, if you don't create the space for it, then it's just going to roll out when you really don't want it to be there. So just reminder not to just keep sweeping things under the rug, and to really surround yourself with people that will even maybe encourage that when it's needed. I think it's become vital in my life the past year. I know that's for sure.
In a large way, we have become a culture who thinks that we have to avoid, I don't want to say toxic positivity, because again, I like to be positive, but I think that it's so important in life that we allow ourselves to feel the negative emotions and understand that they're inevitable. And that doesn't mean that we have to become a negative person. We can be optimistic. We can be positive while still allowing space to allow ourselves to process those negative emotions. And a lot of the time, if we are feeling smothered or overwhelmed or overcome by anything that is negative or uncomfortable, we race to eliminate that feeling. We're doing something wrong. We have to outrun it. We have to pray it away. We have to positive thought it away. We have to do something that smothers that negative feeling. And I believe that a lot of the time, the something we have to do is let ourselves just feel it and let ourselves be uncomfortable and let ourselves sit in the pain. And Heather, that's speaking to the giving yourself space to cry. And for some of us, that looks like crying. For some of us, that looks like just sitting still and feeling like you are crawling out of your skin. That is harder for me than crying. When I want to crawl out of my skin because all of the emotions I'm feeling are so uncomfortable. And instead of numbing, instead of going and eating, instead of watching a TV show and numbing out, instead of avoiding the feeling that I'm feeling, which I do a lot because sometimes there are too many feelings and you need to numb out, but recognizing when it's not the time to numb out, recognizing when it's the time to sit in the discomfort so that you can actually process it so that it doesn't become PTSD or doesn't become something bigger, and realize that for those of us with kiddos or a spouse or people who love us, they're witnessing how we're doing this. They're learning from us, not from what we tell them, but from what we show them. And so when I sit down with my kids and I try to talk to them about grief and I try to tell them how to manage their own, and they're not reciprocating, they're not participating in the conversation, and I feel like I'm talking to a wall.
That'll happen sometimes with boys.
Exactly. What I have learned is that those conversations are still incredibly important, but what's the most important is how I'm leading by example and how I'm showing them, because they're watching, and that's where they're learning way more than what I say. They're watching what I do.
You know, one of the most popular questions I hear is, how do you do it all? Or, can I pick your brain? And I always laugh because my knee-jerk reaction is, oh girl, I don't do it all. And now I have a way to let you pick my brain about my business. I have an incredible team of women helping me manage my crazy behind the scenes and keeping my life well loved and this podcast running smoothly. Because Lord knows I'd be a hot mess express trying to do it all myself. This year, I launched a course where I finally do a deep dive and share all the raw details about how I built my business and team to where it is today. My COO, Alyssa, and I recorded over 2 hours of video into 9 lessons to create a course that reviewers are saying is unlike anything else out there. Hey, their words, not mine. But hold on, the videos aren't all. I'm going to read you my list of what it includes so I don't forget any of it. There's a 28-page workbook with questions to move you from stuck as a solopreneur to thriving as a team, or even just hiring your first assistant, with smart goals and steps to guide you from point A to point B efficiently. A behind-the-scenes look at our application, hiring process, and critical onboarding process, my cannot-miss first step in hiring a new employee, and how to cultivate a team buy-in. There's a deep dive on my team's inner workings, our operating systems, favorite apps, and index full of time-saving tools we use to keep our team running smoothly. If you're ready to take your business, side hustle, or network marketing lifestyle to the next level and grow a team, I'm your girl. Head to www.mylifewellloved.com/team to grab yours today. It's all about those actions, those daily habits. We talk so much about how, it's one thing to say like, I want to do this, or I want to be less negative, or I want to be able to, I call it sitting in the suck. Like I want to be able to sit in the suck sometimes and just be bored and like, just let myself feel it,
I'm writing that down right now. That is so good. Sitting in the suck.
Yeah. Very eloquent, I know. But it's
so
accurate.
great.
Like when it's just a sucky situation with your family or with what's going on, like sometimes you do just have to sit there and feel it, even though you don't want to. And so anyway, I highly applaud that because I think that our kids, they are watching what we do. Yes, they hear what we say, but if we're not backing it up with actions, then how much does it really mean to them, And then Ashley, one thing I wanted to touch on, you wrote this on your Instagram stories, and it kind of goes back to the difference between like finding, I guess, quote unquote, happiness and then looking for joy. And so one thing that I'm really trying to work on personally is not just always being like, I have to be this happy-go-lucky person, but ultimately, like, I know I do sometimes have to sit in the suck, but I can still look for the positive moments and the joy and the greater purpose and picture. And so I'm really trying to illustrate how I'm faltering in it, but also like tools to do that with. And you said on your Instagram stories, I think this was last night, correct me if I'm wrong, but you wrote down, books have been a salve for my broken heart. And then underneath it, you just wrote the word joy. Like you're essentially like, I didn't even know that I needed books so much right now, but like that's what's helping you heal. Do you mind talking a little bit about what that's looked like, your book journey, joy versus happiness? I'd love for you to explore that a little bit with us.
Oh my gosh, of course. One of the things I wrote probably just a couple weeks after Stevie passed was that my fear of never being able to find joy again, and that the things that brought me joy didn't anymore. And would they ever? And would that ever work? And the harsh reality is that a lot of those things won't bring me joy again. And even time, like that's what I've learned is like, oh, okay. So I'm forever changed, right? And so what that has taught me is that some of us are, born with a predisposition to manic depression, for example, which means that, finding that joy is not going to come naturally. And some of us have circumstances that put us in that position. And some of us are going to go through this at a season in life, and it looks different for all of us. But for me, I realized that the only way I was probably going to ever discover that joy again was if I actively sought it, because it wasn't coming naturally after the loss that we experienced. What was coming naturally was for me to sink into a pit of despair and give up. And I think that if I didn't have my boys, my husband and I both said we just would have given up and been perfectly fine with that. We both just told ourselves, I think we would have been just fine, just not being happy ever again, because we didn't even want to be. And that was the truth. But we wanted our boys to be happy. And we knew that we had to be able to find joy again, but we were going to have to seek it out hardcore and fight for it. And the reality is that every time we do something that makes us happy, or something that is a blessing, or something that we're grateful for in our life, we realize that the pain for us always is alongside the joy. So even when we have a joyful experience, even when it's Christmas morning, for us, the pain is never absent from our joy anymore. It's a constant reminder. So even the joy is painful now. So that has been so tricky. To even have your joy bring pain has been something that we have had to learn to live with on a daily basis. And it's our new normal. But also, there is opposition in all things. And this is something that our faith teaches us. And it's the entire point of us being here is, how can we know the good without the bad? And the worse it is, the more you can know the good because you have this comparison. So the joy has also become incredibly obvious to us. The blessings have become incredibly obvious. The clarity that we have about finding joy in the simplest things now has become such a blessing that we have been given. The appreciation we have over simple moments, the reminders to be present, the patience we have with our kids. So many things have changed. And trust me, we're still impatient and we still snap, and our kids can still be incredibly annoying.
Don't we all? I feel that way.
Right? But the clarity we have around that, and again, what matters, has really helped us to seek out that joy. And so for me, going through PTSD and acknowledging that I may be experiencing depression for the first time since losing my daughter, which you would think, well, doesn't that just make you depressed? No, it made me sad. It gutted me. It made me anxious as all get out. My anxiety disorder was through the roof, but I wasn't experiencing depression. I was experiencing absolute gutted heartbreak and immense pain, but I wasn't having symptoms of depression. And I know that because I've had depression in the past. Today, I'm experiencing depression 2 years later. 2 years it took for that to sink in, for me to start noticing these are the symptoms of depression. I don't want to get out of bed. I'm not motivated to do the same things that once motivated me. I'm feeling this sense of hopelessness, all of those things that I know are classic. And what I know that means for me is I have to fight for the joy. So anywhere I can find it, I'm giving myself permission to find it. And my therapist told me once, she's like, you think that reading books for fun means that you're being indulgent, or it means that you're being lazy, or there's no purpose behind it because you're not learning. This is not a self-help book, or this isn't for your work, or this isn't about parenting. And you're punishing yourself for that. But this is what's getting you through the day, or this is what's getting you to the next day, or this is what's actually bringing you joy. Then that's what you're going to do right now. And so lean into the joy, whatever that looks like for you, whatever season. And it may be something completely random for you, but recognize when you're feeling it and give yourself permission to feel it more. Create opportunities for yourself to feel that more, even if it feels like the most random thing in the world, like reading thrillers or rom-coms, like it happens to be
Right.
for me right now. And ironically, I get asked a lot, and sorry, this is a little bit of a segue, but I get asked a lot about what books people can read on grief that have been really helpful for me. And there's so many out there that are beautiful. And I have lists, on my Instagram and on my blog of books that have carried me through a lot of the tough moments of my grief, that have given me excellent advice or insight or common ground and helped me feel less alone. But the reality is that reading about grief just magnifies your own. It is so hard to do. It's like being depressed and reading a book on depression, or being so anxious about your kid and then reading a book about all these parents who, it just makes it feel heavier. And I honestly have a lot of trouble getting through those books, or having the courage to sit down and step into somebody else's pain to that extent, because mine is so big and heavy at the same time. So instead, I have found myself, for example, my favorite author is Kristen Hanna. She wrote The Nightingale, Firefly Lane. She's written The Great Alone, so many incredible books. And she is the most talented author, but her books are sad and they're heavy and they're real. And so what I have found is that reading her piece of historical fiction about World War II and people who lost their own children and lost their spouse in the war and had to fight and had to sacrifice, and reading about other fictional characters' pain has been so good for my own, as opposed to reading a self-help book.
Ooh, that's a good tip.
And stepping into, like, even these rom-coms that I'm reading, or reading about somebody's heartbreak, or reading about all of these different stories, these fictional stories are giving me permission to find common ground, feel less alone, and put myself in the head of somebody else experiencing pain without them being real people that are gutting me. So I've been able to escape into these alternate realities where these fictional characters know pain as I do, or know pain in a way that I can never imagine
Right.
giant extreme scale like war. And then I'm able to tell myself, like, since the beginning of time, women and mothers like me have been navigating this pain. There are millions who have been navigating this, and it has become a part of their DNA and a part of their story. And I need to learn these stories, and these stories make me feel less alone and remind me that I am capable of carrying this. And whatever any of us is carrying, we can find common ground in the stories of others' pain that make up these novels that I'm becoming obsessed with. So, yes, my Instagram is inadvertently becoming a giant book review place.
Love it.
It's not really, that's not the direction I'm necessarily going. But I said yesterday that online space is just where I share me and our life and what's happening currently. And currently, I'm reading a lot of books.
There you go.
And currently, it's working. And currently, I'm finding some joy there. So I'm grabbing onto it because I'm not finding joy in a lot of places currently. So if I'm finding it there, I'm going to hold on to it.
Hi, friend. Are you enjoying this episode? Hit that plus sign in the top right of your Apple Podcast app or the follow button in your Spotify app or wherever you're listening. That way you automatically get each new episode without having to search for it. You're welcome. So I feel like, Ashley, I have this question that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast, and I feel like your answer is probably going to be books. So I'm going to tell you the question, and then I'm actually going to ask you an alternate question because you kind of spurred something else I want to ask you. So my final question for most people on the podcast is, what's your favorite thing in your health journey that's making you feel like yourself right now? And you can say books if you want to, or you can come off the wall with something random.
No, this is great. There are a handful of things that I have started to do. Is number one, and this is a constant battle for me, self-care does not come naturally for me. And I feel like for way too long in my younger, immature years, and I don't think I'm the only one, but like that was like a badge of honor, putting yourself last. Oh, how selfless, how strong. Oh, you don't have needs. Wow, like let's celebrate you for not having needs. And something that I thought just made me so indestructible and how admirable was really my greatest weakness and my greatest disservice to the people, to myself, and to the people that I care about. And so I'm teaching myself what self-care looks like. And that is literally, I have to force myself. It's like the gym, which I realize is easy for some people. Like they love it and crave it. It's not easy for me, but it's literally self-care, something I have to force myself into, whether that's meditation, prayer, taking baths. That is huge for me to recalibrate and to ground myself.
Same, sister.
Right?
Baths have become my new thing.
Exact little things like getting a pedicure or giving myself permission to read a book in daylight. Like, oh my gosh, during the day, read a book. Like, am I allowed to do that? Making myself a tea in the morning, taking my supplements. That is a huge one. And I know that one sounds so silly, but why is it so hard to like swallow a handful of pills in the morning? Why does that feel like the most impossible chore and task when it's something that will bless my life so much? So
totally
having that morning routine, knowing that I am deserving enough of a yummy drink that I take 6 minutes out of my morning schedule to make for myself, the same way I make my kids breakfast. I deserve that. So, taking time for self-care, whether that is things that help you stay healthier. I have not been great with exercise and being consistent in that area. And that's something that I really hope to step into, because I know that's going to be one of the best things for me. But doing those slow down routines and doing things for myself that are healthy are things that I'm very good at. I'm really good at going online and filling up my cart and never checking out, and telling myself that filling my Free People or my Amazon cart is really just quality time with myself. But that's not serving me in the least bit. And the amount of time that I spend scrolling through funny videos or filling my cart with things that I'm never even going to buy is something that I could have read the book, taken the bath, done the meditation, swallowed the supplements, and made myself a nutritious meal instead of ordering takeout. And that's something that I'm really trying to, do for myself. It's not easy.
I love that. It's not easy. You're right. I actually had a Christian psychologist on an episode of this season. we can link to that in the show notes. And we'll also link to Ashley's blog post about the books that she's read about grief for sure. I think that'd be helpful for people. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, now I lost my train of thought. See, I'm like, squirrel. Let's see. So we had the Christian psychologist on, and she was talking about how Christians and women of faith tend to take like everything you need to be last. And she was like, and don't get me wrong, we are a selfish culture, like 100%. We have to be aware that we're not just being selfish all the time. But at the same time, the Bible verse literally says to love your neighbor as yourself. So she was like, that means God is calling us actually that we do have to have self-confidence and love for ourselves and who he has created us to be. We're image bearers of him, and he knows our human needs. So why we would think that we have the capacity to almost like be a little mini Christ here on earth and never take care of ourselves, like that's ridiculous when you say it out loud, actually. So I don't know. I just thought that was a really interesting take.
I could not agree more.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I loved having you. Is there anything you want to tell people about where to find you online, or any like platform you're especially loving right now you want to look for you on?
Oh, I would love to. And again, thank you so much for having me and for being a safe space for me to be vulnerable and to open up and share what, my personal experience is like, even though I know it's not the same as everyone else's. And I would love to connect with anyone listening over on my Instagram, which is at Little Miss Mama. I spell mama weird. It's MOMMA, or littlemissmama.com is where you'll find some of my blog posts. But for the most part, I do most of my sharing over on Instagram.
Cool. Well, I will link all of her resources there. I actually spell mama the same way. So I'm like, yay, we're okay, wrong together. But if it's okay, I'm going to close us out in prayer. And Ashley, thank you so much again for coming on. Okay, dear God, thank you so much for just the honor and the joy that it was to bring Ashley on today. God, I know that there's going to be women that are listening to this that have never dealt with grief in the way that she has, but that also don't understand what she was explaining today about what it looks like just to empathize with people and to start to realize their own traumas and hurts and sin and all the things that are hard in life. They're there, and that you actually do want them to lean into those prior hurts and understand them, because as I believe you are the only one who can take that pain away, God. You have really just brought so much truth and salve for our souls out of Ashley's mouth, Lord. I truly believe you're using her and Stevie and her entire family's story just to empower your name further and to reach more people and to give them hope, God. And that's just incredibly cool. Thank you so much for letting me get to talk to Ashley today. Thank you for the blessing that she has been to my life and testing my faith and things that I might think inside or outside about anything having to do with anxiety, hardship, grief, loss. Lord, you're the ultimate healer. You are our ultimate Father, and you love us. Abba God, thank you so much for who you are, Lord. Thank you so much for the gift of Ashley's words today. And I pray that you would bless every single woman's ears who hear this, and in your name, amen. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. I will talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye. If y'all think I'm a little crazy, just wait till my favorite guest joins me in the marriage corner. It's my hubby, Eric. I was about to say welcome back to the marriage corner, but actually I feel like today is more like the parent corner.
Marriage corner parent edition.
There we go. I like it.
So we are back recording in the morning once again. I do have my pre-workout this time, so maybe you'll notice a little bit more acuity, a little more sharpness.
Pep in your step.
A little more energy. Things of that nature.
Yes.
We were talking about this, and this can be the parent edition of the Marriage Corner. We've had just a few funny stories with Leighton and Finn, and wanted to share those with y'all.
Now, if you're new around here, maybe, Eric, can you give them a little brief synopsis of their ages and their personality differences so they can kind of know what we're working with here?
Sure. So, Leighton, our firstborn, 7 years old.
Classic firstborn.
Classic firstborn. Fairly similar personality to me, I would say. People pleaser, asks a lot of questions, a little more cautious, conservative, cares what other people think, cares about other people. Just great kid. Great kid. Finn, 4-year-old. Not a great, I'm just kidding. Classic second child. Finn is 4, and he is much more like his mom. Tons of energy. And we do joke that you cannot hurt that kid. He will fall off a 3-foot chair, bump his head, and you just cannot keep him down. Just the other weekend, I can't remember. I think he was on the trampoline or doing something, and he came back in, and it looks like he got into a fight. Had a scratch across his face, bruise on his forehead, a bloody lip as well too.
Yes.
And no big deal, he just, but it looked like he had gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson outside in the backyard, and, he was completely fine. And another thing we joke about with Finn is that he's got this fat pad on his forehead, and you can push it. It's kind of soft. And sometimes him and I will play this little game where we'll put our foreheads together and push against each other until somebody gives up. And I'll tell you what, that kid will push as hard as he can, and he will never give up. It is incredible, but it's his fat pad on his forehead.
Well, and Finn brings a lot of personality to every equation that he goes to. Actually, I didn't even tell you this, but yesterday I walked into Burn, and Finn is basically a celebrity at Burn with all the ladies. I mean, he walks in and everybody's like, oh, Finn's here, bye, Finn. And he's got his little girlfriends in the childcare room. And one of the trainers is giving him high fives as he walks in the door.
And I think it's even the way he carries himself or even the way he walks. So he does have just a little belly on him. Like some 4-year-olds have these little bellies. Well, when he walks, he leads with his belly and his chest out, kind of, just displaying all that Finn confidence that he has.
So true. But anyway, we walk in the door, and Michelle, one of our trainers at Burn Hoover, is out in the middle of the floor still training class. She's like having all the ladies stretch out after some kind of, cardio day. Well, she says on the mic as soon as Finn walks in the door, Finn, can I get my high five? Does Finn care that there's probably 50 women all over that floating black floor and she's in the center of it? Nope. So he tears off. Dead sprint from the front door all the way to the center of the gym floor, gives her this massive high five, and then just turns around and runs back out.
And then other times he will just be incredibly shy, especially if he knows, there's a camera on him or we're trying to get a picture, like most 4-year-olds, and then he just won't want to take a picture at all. So
that's really fun for me in my job, you can imagine.
But both Finn and Leighton, very different personalities, but they both love very big and very good kids. So
yes.
Back to the parent edition, a couple just brief stories. But do you want to go first with your story?
Yeah. So, which actually, Eric, you and I did the 2023 predictions not too long ago, and I can link back to that prior episode. But one of the things that we talked about a little bit was finances. So maybe you can even weigh in a little bit on this, especially as people are planning their summer vacations a little bit, if you have any good budget tips or anything for us. But I am definitely the one that's in charge of coming up with our meal plan for the week, writing out our grocery list. And then a lot of times I would say that I do shop for our groceries for the week with the boys after church. And so last Sunday was no exception. Eric had to work at the hospital, and so me, Leighton, and Finn go to the grocery store. Well, I either go to Aldi because I know it's going to be cheaper, number one, but always bring your quarter and always bring your reusable totes because that's part of how you save money there.
Or you could just move some bags out of the chip boxes and then use the chip box.
You can.
That's what I do.
And I do that at times, but man, I think I'm buying more groceries than you are when I go, babe, because I need 3 of those to get all my groceries in and out of there.
It's probably true.
So anyway, if I don't shop at Aldi, then I'm shopping at Publix, and I'm shopping for the BOGO deals, which if you're not familiar, that's buy one, get one free. In Alabama, a lot of people don't know this. Pro tip, you do not have to actually buy 2 products. You can just buy one in the state of Alabama, and it rings up half price. Now, in Florida, you do actually have to buy 2. So pro tip for my Alabama gals. But Publix is pretty pricey if you're not buying BOGO, I will say. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's high-end products at Publix.
That's right. So Leighton and Fenton, of course, are always asking for every, cookie on the cookie aisle, every bag of chips on the chip aisle, so on and so forth. And my ready excuse is always, well, that's not on sale, so we're not going to buy it. And it's also because it's not healthy. I don't want it in my house. I don't want to spend more on our grocery budget, all these things. So the other day, Leighton asked me the typical question, Mommy, can we get, whatever it was? And I said, no, it's not on sale. And we have a coupon for this item, that was similar next to it. And he kind of ponders for a minute, as Leighton will. And then he looks at me and he said, oh, can we not buy that because we don't have any money, Mommy? And I kind of was like, oh man, how am I going to tackle this question? Because Eric and I are very big on, we don't want our kids to grow up like privileged or thinking things are just handed to them. Like we really want them to learn a good work ethic. Like Eric and I both had to working as we get a little older, all those things.
I guess just to be appreciative of the things that we do have is kind of the main concern.
Yes. So I'm like quickly trying to think on my feet what the best, parenting teaching moment is here. And the first thing that pops out into my mind, and therefore because of my personality type, the only thing that pops out of my mouth is, buddy, we're not going to buy that because we want to keep our money. It's not that we don't have money. It's that we want to essentially save our money. And Eric was like, heck yeah, you did. I feel like that was like a proud husband moment.
Yeah, I felt like that was a great response. And it doesn't beat around the bush, but it's more of an affirmative answer. We want to save. We want to be responsible with our money. Yeah, I just felt like it was the perfect answer.
Well, thanks, babe. So with all that said, I know a lot of people are kind of planning their vacations coming up for summer, and they're always like, how does Eric save all that money? Do you mind just giving like 3 quick trips about how you save for vacations?
Well, this is not an affirmative answer, but sometimes you do just have to say no, and set those boundaries. And do it in a respectful way. And part of saying no in a respectful way is prioritizing what you want to do on your vacations. That could be going out to eat for dinners. That could be doing activities with the kids. It could be a number of different things. But if you prioritize the things that you want to do, usually it makes it easier to kind of plan financially how that vacation might work. I'm also a big proponent of planning ahead of time. Maybe restaurants that you want to go to or things that you want to do, and you can kind of compare prices. Also, too, and we've talked about this before, if you can save money, whether you have credit cards that you can earn points on to maybe get discounted or free rooms, or if you're flying somewhere, you can have a credit card that maybe gives you miles, whatever your preferred airline is. I think those are just kind of the basic ways that we try and save money.
Will you tell them what your favorite
also,
credit cards
too,
are?
No sodas for kids at dinner time. You're only drinking water. That's how we save the big bucks in the Brown house.
That's how I grew up, just saying.
That's how I grew up too. So, yeah.
Okay, tell them your favorite credit cards if you don't mind.
So, I guess my favorite are the ones that we use. And I've had this one credit card since I was working at KPMG and traveling a lot, but the American Express Surpass card, it's for Hilton, and we accrue Hilton points with that. They have a lot of great perks that come along with that. Free room upgrades, usually some complimentary services when you get to the room.
Those free breakfasts are clutch.
Free breakfasts are always nice. I really do like the room upgrade if available. It's probably my favorite one. But also, too, I think you get 3 times points for every dollar you spend. And then depending on the different classifications, I think for food and drink, you get 6 points. If you use the credit card at their affiliated hotels, you get 9 extra points. But anyways, it's great, and we try and continue to use that just for American Express purchases to just get Hilton points as opposed to spreading it out amongst a lot of different hotels. But having said that, there are some credit cards that offer just general points that you can use towards any different hotel line. But I find usually the conversion rate of those points isn't quite as good as just sticking with one hotel property. And the second credit card that we use is our Visa, and that is a Southwest Visa. We typically fly Southwest. I would encourage you to, wherever you live, kind of figure out what is the main airline in your city, whatever that main hub is, whether it's Atlanta with Delta or American or United in Chicago. I think American's more in Dallas. But anyways, try and figure out what works best for you. Just keep using that credit card, pay it off every month.
Amen.
And, accrue those points.
Yes. And Eric and I are big believers in paying off your credit card on time and really being wise with your budget in that way. And I think there are definitely years that has been harder, but I really appreciate that Eric makes sure that we're, in check on that. So thanks for doing that, babe.
You're welcome. All right, my turn for the parent edition. Very quick story. Also involves Finn. And just the other day, Finn's been kind of pushing boundaries as he tends to do.
Well, and as every 4-year-old does, I guess.
Sure. But Heather was telling me some of the things that he was doing, and you were just emphasizing, hey, we really need to kind of lock it down on setting boundaries, discipline for Finn. So we had just had this conversation, and we were sitting back in his room. We were reading a book, and then out of nowhere proceeds to fart on me.
Oh, gross.
And, typically, if we wouldn't have just had this conversation, I kind of would have laughed it off. Having said that, I know that's not the best thing to do because that is inappropriate and rude. We just had this conversation, and I said, hey, Finn, we don't do that. If you do that again, we're going to have to go in timeout. Well, actually, no, I did react. I said, hey, you know that you shouldn't do that. And I said, we're going to go in timeout for 3 minutes. So I put him in timeout. His 3 minutes are up. And typically after we put him in timeout, we'll get down on their level and, talk with him. And typically we'll say, hey, buddy, do you know why you were in timeout? So once again, timeout is over. He comes over, I get down on my knee and I say, hey, buddy, do you know why you were put in timeout? And I don't know what answer I was expecting, but he just looks at me right in the eyes and says, it's because I farted on you, Daddy. And the way that he said it, and this is one of the toughest things I think about being a parent, is when your kids say things that are just funny, you still have to be the serious adult. And I'm pretty sure he caught me with a little smirk on my face. It was just so hilarious the way he said it. And I said, yes, that is correct. And like I said, I don't know what answer I was expecting. That is why he went in timeout.
Right.
But the way that he said it was just great. And, it was one of those moments. And hopefully he learned a lesson. And hopefully I can keep my emotions on my face in check a little bit better next time. But just a funny little story.
It is funny, Eric, too. Like, they always talk about resting face, or like people that have easy to read faces or what have you. Even when Eric just walked in from like dropping off the kids, I was like, how'd it go? And he said, it went fine. But his face said otherwise.
I don't know if I said it in that intonation. It was fine. Anytime anybody says something is fine, it's usually not just fine. It was actually fine. I got the kids to school, dropped Finn off. It was fine.
But anyway, it just makes me laugh. Okay, any other like parent edition thoughts you got?
I think that's all I got today.
I will say a hot topic of request recently is for us to talk about how we discipline in our home. So maybe we'll have to think about that for another episode.
Try and keep a straight face when your child says that he farted on you.
Not easy, but you can do it.
Not easy.
Okay, cool. Well, if you have any parent edition stories you want to share with us to make us laugh, please pass them on over on Instagram. You can follow me at My Life Well Loved on Instagram, or at Healthy with Heather Brown, which is more specifically podcast related. We would love to chat with you guys about all those funny things that those kids do. It's just hilarious. I think God gives us kids to, number one, refine us, also keep us laughing and not take life so serious, which we're super thankful for. Okay, y'all have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.
Hey, if you're loving the show, click that follow button on your podcast app. This will ensure you won't miss a single episode. I'll see you next time.